What is going on, everybody? What is going on, the Catch fam? And it's Steven here. And in today's stream, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a frenzy of kind. We're going to do a 2022 NFL mock draft to kind of give my last take on what I think is going to happen on Thursday, what I think is going to happen at the NFL draft. But we're also going to do something I haven't done yet, which is a mock draft of just rookies for fantasy football to kind of just see, all right, so we got the first 3 rounds. Let's see what rookies I value the most from a fantasy sense, right? So it'll be the first time I'm doing it, but we're going to do it on Sleeper, which is a great platform for mock drafting. So it'll be fun regardless at the end of the day, right? Um, but other than that, too, I mean, as we're seeing leading up until the draft, if you guys have seen any of my other streams, especially regarding the draft, you know that I think Aiden Hutchinson should be the #1 draft pick. But we've seen a lot of speculation now that the #1 draft pick might actually be, in fact, Trayvon Walker out of Georgia. The GM apparently is really high on this guy. The owner itself, though, the owner, himself really likes Aiden. So who's gonna win? Is it gonna be the GM or is it gonna be the owner? The owner is already, given the blessing to spend a ton of money. And they've done a lot. They brought in guys like Evan Ingram. They brought in guys like Christian Kirk. But from just taking a step back, I got to imagine that if you're if you're looking at the Jaguars as an organization going forward, you have got to take your hands off the wheel a little bit. Whether it's Jerry Jones, whether it's Dan Snyder, we have seen time and time again that owners that are too involved typically lead to a bad organizational development. So with that said, man, I think in this draft, based off of things that have developed, I'm gonna have to actually go with a different #1 pick. I'm gonna end up leaning towards a guy like maybe a Trayvon Walker. I also, before we get into this, saw an interview today with Kayvon Thibodeau, who has had a ton of stuff around his name about, does Kayvon Thibodeau actually like football? Is he a fan of football? And, I don't think that that's totally fair because just because the guy has other interests, just because he's a big Bitcoin fan, or just because he's got outside business interests. I mean, he went to Oregon to be in Nike's headquarters. He had big time moves after football. I love that. And when I saw this interview with Kayvon Thibodeau, man, I was like, dude, this guy is polished. He is better than quarterbacks in press conferences, man. Every single thing about this guy is tailor fit for prime time TV. This guy's going to be a big time splash play. And man, I think we're going to get him at a discount because there's a lot of bad views on this dude right now, just because he might not be that go-getter type of player that is trying to always just be about football. He's got other interests as well, but we shouldn't necessarily discount him for that. All right, so I'm just gonna get this set up in the background, guys. Get this mock draft. We're gonna start off here with the rookie mock draft, just because I haven't done this yet. So I think it'd be fun to go ahead and just do this one first, as more and more of you guys come on in here, and then we'll go into the last 2022 NFL draft. Derek, what's up, my man? First one in the building. How you doing? How's the audio coming through today? I've also got a little bit of a different setup. For any of you guys that have seen my other streams, did a recent move. So the apartment's kind of coming together very slowly, shall we say. So I apologize for any background sound or any details or anything like that that might be coming about. But let's start the draft here. Let's see where I'm going to get taken to. I don't know where I'm going to be placed at. Oh, I got a pretty late pick. So we see that Breece Hall is the first one going, followed by Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks. Not a big surprise there. So I got 2 minutes on the clock before I pick. So just going to break down some of these picks here real quick. So Breece Hall being the #1 pick, no surprise, no brainer. A lot of speculation. He's going to go to the Bills. I love that move right there. Garrett Wilson, Ohio State wide receiver, my #2 receiver in this draft, right behind Drake London. Although Chris Olave from Ohio State is my trailing third, and he is real good too. I think both these guys are going to be really good. Garrett Wilson's going to have an opportunity to be the #1 wide receiver on whatever team he gets drafted for, right? Treylon Burks is a guy who has serious Deebo Samuel type of playmaking ability. Maybe San Francisco trades up for that top 10 pick for the Jets, replaces Deebo for a guy like Treylon Burks. That could be exciting. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. I do think Treylon Burks has really big game play ability, which is a little bit different than some of these other guys, man. Derek Lincoln, shout out you, man. Thank you for the audio check. That is much appreciated, my guy. Then we got Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker was originally my number one running back before really breaking down some of these other guys and seeing Brees Hall and just falling in love with him, right? But Kenneth Walker is starting to kind of jump his way up into the number or into the first round as a draft pick. And I think it's well deserved because some people knock his lack of catches, lack of, pass work in the college game. But maybe it's a program situation because Michigan State doesn't value the running back position too much in terms of what they can do in the passing work. So I think Kenneth Walker, when he goes into the league, is going to be very fine there. When he did get his limited opportunities, he definitely shined. Drake London, number 5, right there. I like that pick a lot. I think Drake London is going to be a really good performer year one. Oh, and we are up on the clock. I'm going George Pickens. Yeah, this thing's going to give me the gross sounds over and over again, but whatever. I like George Pickens there at the end of the first. I probably jumped for it because I didn't see how much time I had left there. But I think George Pickens is going to be a guy who has probably the best build and maybe some of the best tracking ability from a receiver perspective. So I think George Pickens is going to land in the first round for sure. Coming out of Georgia, this guy could have been a top 15 pick if he stayed healthy, right? This guy's got a great build, but he's going to go to a good team too. Kansas City, I've seen a lot of speculation that they might be the one who gets George Pickens. And if he lands with one of these big time good quarterbacks, man, the ceiling is super high for this dude. So I like that. And with my next pick here, running backs already getting beat to shreds. I would have loved to be able to grab a nice running back here. I do like Damian Pierce a lot. I like Brian Robinson because, he's shown good third down workability, but Damian Pierce, Brian Robinson, Tyler Algier, and Tyler Beatty are kind of my guys right there. But the opportunity to get Malik Willis, which I think is going to be by far the best quarterback in this entire draft from a fantasy perspective, he's going to be the best, I would say, rookie from a fantasy perspective. So getting Malik Willis here is going to really be able to shore up my first 2 picks. And then with my next pick, because I'm only going to do, I'll do a 4-round mock draft here just because they're back to back right there. But I can go running back. I can get some guys. I can really hope a guy like Tyler Beatty, a really small back, can land to me, or I can go Tyler Algier, the guy from BYU, who's also a tremendous running back. Let's see who goes here. Christian Watson, Sky Moore. Those are going to be 2 outstanding receivers too. I think Christian Watson's a guy though, who has a lot of hype around him for what he's done over the offseason, his Senior Bowl performance. I love him as a prospect, so I'm not trying to talk badly about him, but I do think we have to slow or cool a little bit about this guy. He also showed a lot of signs of he still needs time to develop. He still needs to get better before we can really evaluate him as a prospect. From a dynasty perspective, there is a lot of upside for sure, but I'm still not really going to take a big time pick on that guy yet. There's still a lot that I think I need to see more out of Christian Watson before I'm fully convinced, especially in every year you do a new draft, right? From a non-dynasty perspective, I don't have a whole lot of interest in Christian Watson. I think Sky Moore is going to be really good in the future. But with a minute and a half left, let's see what we got at the running back position. That just got absolutely destroyed, man. Oh my gosh. I do like Jerome Ford from Cincinnati. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, man, that sucks. Running back position just got absolutely eaten alive. I think I could probably get Jerome Ford in the 4th here, too. So let's see what's available. Tight end. I would have loved to get Trey McBride. Where did Trey go? Trey went in the end of the 2nd. Okay. That's good. I like Jelani Woods a lot, too. He's an explosive tight end. Keep your eye out for him out of UVA. Look at the 6'7", 265. His comp is Mo Alley Cox, and we know how good he was for the Indianapolis Colts. There's a couple good tight ends here. Nobody really I'm trying to jump on right now. Alex Pierce and Khalil Shakir, Calvin Austin. These 3 receivers right here, I think, are going to be non-first round receivers in the drafts, but I think they're going to be really good performers for sure. Let's see here. I think I'm going to go receiver. I think Alec Pierce. I like Alec Pierce here. I'm taking him. Yeah. Come on, Jerome Ford. Fall to me. Fall to me. Fall to me. Fall to me. Yes, I got Jerome Ford too from Cincinnati, who was a productive player and he's got a great build too, right in that sweet spot of around 600, 220, out of a very productive school in Cincinnati. He ran the rock really well for them. Saw a lot of production there, and he's got some good bounce to him too. He's not as electric as some of the other running backs that went, but where I could get him in the fourth round, I'm not too sure how much farther he would have fallen there, to be quite honest. So that finishes out my 4 round picks there. I went George Pickens, Malik Willis, Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, and Jerome Ford from Cincinnati. I was going Cincinnati heavy, that's for sure. And when you look at this mock draft, as it continues to do the picks in the background, and you look at the first 2 rounds, what are we seeing, right? From a fantasy perspective, we're seeing a lot of receivers go. And that's because this draft, obviously, there's a lot of receivers in it that are already very attractive. But the running backs, I mean, you got to take them. We saw about, I don't know, 6 running backs go in the first 2 rounds, but that's just because of the positional value, right? Because when you're really looking at the talent, it's Brees Hall, it's Kenneth Walker, and there's a huge drop. And then they've got Isaiah Spiller here from a fantasy perspective. I get it. I understand it. He's not actually as fast as you would hope, right? Coming from that CJ Spiller background. But James Cook is actually the guy that I think from a fantasy perspective could give you a lot of dynasty value long term because this dude is by far the best pass catcher, best pass route runner in the running back group. And he can also deliver you some very explosive plays. I mean, we saw some Georgia tape of this guy last year, James Cook, where he just looked absolutely electric, right? So definitely a deep sleeper on a James Cook. You can get him in maybe a non-dynasty league. You can get him with your last pick if you really want to take a shot on a rookie. But I think James Cook could be really good dynasty value for sure because this is a guy coming from the Dalvin Cook bloodline. I definitely think he's got a place in this league for a very, very long time. Let's get to the chat here real quick before we switch over to doing another 2022 NFL mock draft. And this is the last mock draft I'll be doing before we've got the actual mock draft here on Thursday, baby. Or not mock draft, the real draft on Thursday, baby. Jerry, what's up, my guy? How you doing? My day's going good. The weather's a little grody today. First rain in the new apartment. So the view is not as great as I was expecting. But just kind of putting the apartment together, getting that slowly sorted out. It's definitely been longer than I expected, but it's all looking good. Alexis Gracho, hi Steven. I wouldn't do many of your picks in the draft, but I saw them all because a different person is mine, as we learn from others. Alexis, thank you so much for that. And it's funny because I mentioned in the first round, I actually did kind of get caught up in analyzing some of the other picks that went before me, and I took George Pickens. But now looking back at my draft, I'm actually very happy with that George Pickens pick. But Alexis, let me know what your thoughts are. What would you have done differently there? What other players are you super interested in? And let's just say for context, let's say what are your first 2 round? What are those people that you're trying to target right there? And who are the rookies that you are most excited for on a fantasy perspective? Let's see here. Dalvin Cook's brother. Yeah, man. Derek saying, I need my Cowboys to trade out a 24th pick for Debo. I'm wishing on a star. Dude, that would be crazy. Imagine replacing Amari Cooper with Debo Samuel. Wow, that'd be nuts. I don't know if you saw Michael Parsons' puck drop flaw. That was pretty embarrassing. But it was pretty funny too. And I tell you what, I would rather have my face going across all of media as doing the puck drop wrong than sitting in my office, right? That's for sure. Okay, guys, so we're gonna switch over. We're gonna do the NFL mock draft now on Draft Network. Here we got it set up right here. We got the Jags up at number 1. But before we do this, man, I also gotta just shout out the Boston Celtics for sweeping the Brooklyn Nets. I apologize to anyone out there who is a Brooklyn Nets fan, but I can't stand Kyrie Irving. I can't stand Kevin Durant. You look at these dudes, super talented. I'm not questioning the talent, man, but they're frustrating sometimes. They are frustrating sometimes, and I always root against them. I always root against them, and I also had a little future going on the Celtics, so was very glad to see that payout in spades for me. Oh no, Alexis is a Nets fan. I apologize, Alexis. I apologize. Next year, though, man, you get Ben Simmons, you get him cooking right. You get this team kind of better chemistry. I like Steve Nash personally. I like him a lot, but maybe he's just not the guy for the job. And I just think that there needs to be a little bit more responsibility put on all these players. And they had a lot going on off the field, obviously, that was sometimes out of their control, but you just want to see a little bit more accountability for their stars. So, getting into it, guys, I mentioned it earlier. I'm doing a little bit different here after the news kind of broke that there's a little bit more of a shakeup with the Jags. At number one, they are now apparently interested in four players, and I got to imagine it's the two defensive ends, Trayvon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, as well as Evan Neal and Ike Ekonwu. I think those are the four guys that they're really looking at right now. And my take is I think it's Trayvon Walker. I think they just got a little bit carried away. I think they're going to make the mistake here because I think Aiden Hutchinson's a better player, but I think they go Trayvon Walker. And that sets up a fairy tale scenario. Aiden Hutchinson staying in Michigan, staying in Detroit. This guy is Dan Campbell's blood DNA, baby. So I say Aiden Hutchinson goes to Detroit. It's going to be a great pick. Up next, we got the Houston Texans. You guys know how I feel about the Houston Texans. They have just got a draft best player available. And honestly, they got Kayvon Thibodeau sitting right there at number three. I was talking about him earlier in the stream. I just love this guy's polish, this guy's makeup. But I will say, he's a great player, a lot of upside, but they've done this in the past. They've gone out, they've drafted the big time edge rushers, right? Let's see, going back, Mario Williams, David Clowney, they also had in the building too. I mean, they've had good players in the building that were high draft capital players. It just hasn't worked out. I've seen a lot of speculation that Derek Stingley is going to be the guy that they look at. Wouldn't be totally shocked if they did that, but I don't think that's the right move at this point. Derek Stingley, I've had mocked in the past falling out of the top 10. I think Amatos Gardner is the better player. I got to go Kayvon Thibodeau here. I just can't imagine he falls. So with the Jets up on the clock, I know they've got a ton of needs all over the board, but they get the pick of the litter here on the offensive line spot. But they also need edge and corner a whole lot too. I'm sticking edge, as I know I talked about this last stream. I just think that the idea of getting Jermaine Johnson here is going to be too sweet to give up. And they know they got the Giants coming around there too, who are going to be interested in that edge spot. And the Jets got number 10. So they know that they're going to get one of these good corners here, whether it be Derek Stingley, Ahmad Sauce Gardner, Trent McDuffie. I think they'd be happy with either three of those guys right there. And Andrew Booth Jr. is no slouch either. So the Jets go out, they draft Jermaine Johnson. That prompts the Giants to make a quick turn and go offensive line, which I think this would be a dream scenario for the Giants. Dream scenario for them. And I think the first offensive lineman off the board is Ike Ekonwu, who is the best run blocker and also is just going to be a great scheme fit for this Giants organization. I'm expecting big progress from this offense next year. I don't know if we're going to see Saquon Barkley be the fantasy relevant god that he used to be. I don't know if we're going to see Daniel Jones go out there and throw it all over the barn yard, but we are going to see an improvement because Brian Daboll is a better coach. I think this team has made some good investments, and I think that this team is structurally looking forward, right? They're not making too many rash decisions, right? We're not trading Saquon Barkley. We're going to explore it, but we're not just going to trade him off for pennies on the dollar. We're not just going to go get another quarterback because our quarterback isn't good. They are looking for the future, and I love that. At number 6, you know how I feel about it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. This is the first spot where quarterback gets dicey. This is where quarterback is really an option. But I think that when you're looking at this team, you just got to trade out. You got to trade out. And I've never done this before. I've never done this before, but we're going to do a trade here. We're going to do a trade. Oh, I can't even do the trade. Oh, that's so lame. Screw you, Draft Network. Screw you, Draft Network. That's lame. But anyways, okay, so with the number 6 pick, we got to go Evan Neal, offensive tackle from Alabama. Makes too much sense that they go there. If you're not going to trade out of that pick, you got to get a guy that's going to be there down the road to support Christian McCaffrey, your best asset, to let Sam Darnold have a little bit of time to throw it to DJ Moore, the fantasy, most undervalued fantasy player. He's so good, but he just doesn't get the opportunities. We need him to get more opportunities. We need him to be the guy that he could be if he was just in a better offense. All right, we get the Giants back on the clock, and that's where I think they are in a spot here to take the first corner off the board, but they're also in a situation where the edge is very enticing. George Karlaftis is a guy that I like here. I'm just not too sure that this is the right fit for him. George Karlaftis is also a guy who I could imagine falling very, very far in this draft. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because if he doesn't go here, I don't really see him going in the top 20. And that's scary because he's a really good player. But we're seeing a lot of speculation that he is going to fall out of the top first. He might fall out of the first round, is what I'm hearing right now. And that's just based on the fact that when you look at George Karlaftis, you don't see the same athleticism. You don't see the same rawness. You don't see the same bend, the same get off as some of these other guys. But that shouldn't drop him as much as I think that it is dropping him. I mean, he's the best bull rusher in this draft, hands down. I think that the Giants on the clock, you gotta go. You gotta look at this and you gotta say, all right. I mean, if it was my take, I would say go offensive line, but man, you can't invest more capital at the receiver position either. I mean, you already got Kenny Galladay who's taking a fat contract, Sterling Shepard. You got Kadarius Toney who wants to rap more than play receiver. They has got a whole mess there. I think Kyle Hamilton makes a little too much sense to pass up on, especially when you're evaluating the other positions there. With the Falcons up on the board, man, do they need everything? They need a little bit of everything, but I do think they go receiver here. And Garrett Wilson, the guy who was the number 1 receiver taken in the rookie only mock draft that we did in the beginning of the stream, which if you have not seen yet, definitely go back and take a look at it, guys. And if you are not already a part of the Catch fam, make sure you hit that sub button, hit that like button, man. It really helps out. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and that's all because of the love and support from you guys. Love and support from guys like Jerry, man, Alexis in the chat talking about how she's got the love for the Nets, how she's got different takes on my rookie only mock draft. I love to hear it though. I love to hear all the chat, all your guys' engagement. It truly makes this totally worthwhile. Number 8, Atlanta Falcons up on the board. We taking Garrett Wilson. He's off the board, baby. And at number 9, the Seattle Seahawks coming around here. They got to go offensive lineman. It's very clear to me. If they're not going offensive lineman, they're going quarterback, but I don't think Pete Carroll is going to do that quite yet. I still think that there's a chance they get a guy like maybe Baker Mayfield. That would be great. I would love that move. I got to imagine Baker is going to be on a team next year, and it's not going to be the Browns. That's for damn sure. Charles Cross here, best lineman, and I think also the best fit. He's a little bit more mobile than a guy like Trevor Penning. I think Trevor Penning has some serious upside, though. I would love this dude on the Seahawks, but he just doesn't fit the scheme as much because I think the Seahawks like to have a guy who's a little bit more mobile, and Charles Cross is the best pass blocker available at this point, too. Number 10, Jets coming right back around the clock here. Sauce Gardner off the board. Jets are very happy with that pick. They get my favorite corner in this draft, an absolute steal. Now, the Washington Commanders are on the board. I did this last draft, and I'm sticking true with it, man. I think Drake London's the guy here. This is probably the pick that I'm most sure of in this entire draft, is that the Washington Commanders are going receiver, and they're also going to target a guy like Drake London because I think his body, his physique, the way he complements, a guy like Terry McLaurin, but also complements a guy like Carson Wentz. It's just too identical to the Michael Pittman transition from last year. We also saw Carson Wentz have, some bigger receivers back in Philly when he was there that he really paired up with well. And Carson Wentz, I don't know, for whatever reason, he just does seem to target those big dudes. I mean, he loved the tight end spot with the Colts. He loved the tight end spot with the Eagles as well. He just likes those big body frames he can chuck it up to and make them do all the work. And that's exactly what Drake London can do. And from a fantasy perspective, I would love Drake London with the Washington Commanders. I think he would be great there. Minnesota Vikings up on the board. Man, they've got a lot of things to work on, but I do think ultimately corner could be something of interest for them for sure. And Derek Stingley could be a really sweet spot here. Man, I like this pick here for them. I don't know. Yeah, I like this. I don't see him. I've taken him here more than probably any other team. I think Derek Stingley is a really good spot for them, but I don't know. I think that it's just Derek Stingley's such a hard vibe because he's got so much upside. This guy could be the number one pick in the draft based off of his upside, but he's just got so many uncertainties. I'm taking him here though because you're right outside the top 10. You gotta do it. Houston Texans up again at number 10 or at number 13. Trent McDuffie makes a lot of sense here, and they do need a corner, but that's just not ultimately the highest value player that they can get, right? They don't need that position right there. I do think that when you're looking at this team, they do have a lot of needs. They could get a little bit more explosive at the receiver position. I would like that. I would like if they did some stuff there. That's for sure. I think they could help out on the offensive line a little bit, but I don't see another lineman going there. Let's see here. This is another draft trade out potentially with while I'm looking at this. I mean, there's just not much I see of them doing here. And this is going to be a spot where I think a team could trade up and potentially get the first quarterback off the board. And Malik Willis is sitting right there looking pretty. I don't know here. I gotta go. You know what? I said I wasn't going to, but I might have to. It just makes a little too much sense here. But with the offensive line being in need, man, I don't know. This is a tough one. This is a pickle. All right. I'm going to go Trent McDuffie here, who I think is a little bit of a slept-on asset, not the bigger name guy, but this is a perfect Patriots player. And this is a Patriots type of organization with the Texans after the overhaul. They had a lot of Patriots front office guys come up. And I think Trent McDuffie is the perfect ideal candidate for what the Pats would have looked at in the past. And I think you pair up a guy like Trent McDuffie, who's a little bit more consistent, a little bit more sound, with a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, who there are some questions about how much he's dedicated to the game, but there's no questions about that with a guy like Trent McDuffie. He's proven, he's thinking through. He is a football guy all the way through his blood. And just like his teammate is, Kyler Gordon, they're both about that action. I'm actually interested to see what you guys think about that pick there because I'm not loving it. I'm not loving that pick that I took right there, but I do think it'll shake the board up a little bit. You got the Baltimore Ravens coming up next. Interior defensive line is something that I identify here, and I think Jordan Davis, who I took here last time, I think this makes a lot of sense to plug that gap. But Devontae Wyatt's also another one who's a little bit more athletic. Could be a guy that they disperse across the defensive line. And when I look at their needs here, they need both interior and exterior, and on the edge as well, right? So I think a guy like Devontae Wyatt maybe offers you a little bit more capabilities there, allows you to do more in that sense. So I'm taking Wyatt there, a guy who's going to jump up the board. So this dude also, I mean, Devontae Wyatt had a really good offseason. His Senior Bowl, his senior season as well. I mean, he was good, but over the offseason is really where he climbed. That whole Georgia team really climbed. Eagles up on the board. Shout out our Eagles fan, Ronald. We're going to try to do you right here, brother. We're going to try to do you right. Corner is definitely a need for them. And I actually am going to do, I'm going to go corner. I think Andrew Booth Jr., first corner for them in this board here. We got the Clemson corner. He is really good player. I wasn't as high on him as I think most people were throughout this offseason. I had a little bit of speculation that he was going to be healthy at a certain point too, because he did get banged up, but looks like that's going to totally work out. So I'm not as concerned about that anymore. So I think that's a really solid pick. Saints up on the board. You got to imagine they traded up for a quarterback. I'm sticking true to that. I think they get their guy. And the fact that Malik Willis slid all the way here, that does entice me. That does entice me a lot to make him the pick. But you know what? I don't know. I don't know if he fits that scheme as much as the guy that I really think they're targeting, which is Kenny Pickett. So I don't think. Mm, I don't know. I don't know. That's tough. Desmond Ritter has really jumped up here too. He's a guy who I think the Seahawks are going to try to target in the second, or they're going to try to trade up in the late first for. I think they would love him. Pittsburgh Steelers also could be eyeing this guy here. I don't know. I got to take Kenny Pickett here. I got to stick with what my gut says here. I think they would like a guy like this, and they've had guys like this in the past. Chargers up on the board next. I'm going with the big boy, Jordan Davis, interior defensive line. Every mock draft that you're going to see out there basically has some sort of version of Jordan Davis going to the Chargers because that's just a glaring need for what they need right now. Their defensive line is looking really good next year, but last year they were atrocious in the middle, and they've spent a lot of capital on that defense already to really bolster it up. But I think they continue to do that and slam it in the first round and go out and get a guy like Jordan Davis. With the Chargers up on the board next, I think they go, or the Eagles up on the board next, I think they go out and get a guy like Chris Olave, a true field opener to space out and increase all that explosive offense that they have right there with Devontae Smith on the outside. Saints up on the board next. This is a shot, right, where they can go receiver, which I think they need, or they say we need to invest for the future, right? So you look at the offensive line, which is a definite need. Trevor Penning is still there, the big mauler. I think getting him and getting Kenny Pickett's Mr. Small Hands is going to be a really good move for them. At number 20, quarterback's the biggest need for them, of course, but with Big Ben stepping down, man, I got to say Malik Willis is going to go here. Mike Tomlin is like obsessed with this dude. There's no way that he is not drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers if he is here. The only thing, I mean, I've heard like a ton of different stuff. Like Malik was the guy first, right? And then it was Desmond Ritter. And then it's Kenny Pickett, still kind of the guy. So it's really a crapshoot to see which quarterback actually does go first. But I definitely think there's a scenario where we're going to see the first quarterback go at the very close to number 20. And I could definitely see Malik Willis falling out and going towards the more prototypical guy like a Kenny Pickett, who had a Heisman type of season this year. I mean, he was absolutely amazing. No knock on a guy like Malik Willis, but Malik Willis is a little bit more raw, I would say, right now. Let's go into the chat real quick as I see my guy John coming in. I see the love in the chat right now. James Davis, it's just been reported on Twitter that the Chiefs have been talking to teams from 7th pick and down. Crazy. James, what a good damn, that's a nice update. I would love to see the Chiefs trade up. That would be sick. But yeah, the GM of Jags is going to call for Walker. I agree, Alexis. That's a good point by you. I mentioned that earlier, is that, you know, typically when the GM speaks, you got to take it that's probably going to be where they go. And that's why I ultimately did decide to go with Trayvon Walker there at number 1, which is upsetting. It's very upsetting for me. Low Gamer, what is up, man? How you doing? What are you guys up? What are you up to? Let's see here. Derek hitting the thumbs up. That's right, Derek. Thank you for the love and support, brother. John, what are you up to, man? You getting some food in your system? How you hanging? New England Patriots up on the clock. Gotta go linebacker. And I saw a ton of highlights of this kid today. Devin Lloyd. He's looking tasty. He's looking like a great prospect. Gosh, this guy was fun to watch, man. The way he just blew up quarterbacks, the way he just blew up people every time he hit them, the way he can make interceptions. I mean, the guy looks tremendous. He reminded me a little bit of Darius Leonard. I got a little excited when I saw it. So I'm making this pick right here. Devin Lloyd, the first linebacker off the board. Packers on the board. Shout out our guy Spencer. I don't think he's here tonight, but I'm going to make you real happy tonight, Spence. And I'm taking Mr. Jameson Williams, my favorite receiver in this draft class, barring the injury. Jameson Williams, when he comes back off an injury, if he got picked by the Green Bay Packers, holy shit, that guy is going to be a fantasy gold mine, and you need to go get him. Some people comp him to the next Tyreek Hill. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but man, this guy is hella good. He was dominant at Alabama, just absolutely dominant. Transferred from Ohio State, went to Alabama, and just cooked kids from day one. Arizona up on the board. I think they got a guy like Treylon Burks still sitting there, and they're very enticed. They've also got a couple good corners like Kara Elam, Kyler Gordon. But the biggest need right now is edge. They got to fill that edge to replace J.J. Watt, to replace Chandler Jones. They've got to get somebody to come in there, plug the gap. And I think George Karlaftis actually does make a lot of sense here. Boye Mafe does fit this game a lot. He's a very explosive edge rusher, comes off of that West Coast scheme a little bit. So it does entice me a little bit to go there and to pass up George Karlaftis, who's a little bit more of a blue chip prospect in the sense coming from Purdue, had a little bit more accomplishments. But I mean, Boye did rise a lot in the Senior Bowl as well as in the offseason in general. But I'm going to take George Karlaftis here. I think they stick to the board. And then the Cowboys, I know we got some Cowboys fans in the chat, I'm sure. And that's why we're going to go receiver. They're going to get Treylon Burks at number 24. So if they don't get Debo, as I heard some people calling for it, they're getting somebody very close to it. And Treylon Burks, who, since this guy really jumped up on the scene for draft purposes, Treylon Burks was getting a lot of comps to Debo and A.J. Brown. Debo in particular because of the way he was used. Coming out of the backfield, doing a lot of stuff, not just your typical outside receiver routes, right? Which is why I think it's funny that, in the chat, y'all were talking about the Cowboys potentially making moves for a guy like Debo. But man, if they can get Treylon Burks here, tremendous pick. And we saw in the rookie-only mock draft that Treylon Burks, who is, I think, the number 3 player off the board. I mean, there's a lot of fantasy in this guy right here. He's going to be a hell of a good player for fantasy. Up next, we got the Buffalo Bills. I'm sticking true to what I believe that they're going to do here. There's so much upside hype about this kid, Breece Hall, and I'm sticking to the love bus, baby, that I got for this guy. I think he's going to be absolutely electric in the league. He looks a little funny, not going to lie. He comes from the same cloth as me, Mr. Big Head, that's for sure. But I think Breece Hall is going to be a tremendous player in the league, especially if he goes to a team like the Buffalo Bills. We got the Tennessee Titans up on the board. They got a couple of assets right here at the receiver position that I think are going to be really interesting for them. And I get it. I remember Spence was talking. He was like, man, why is receiver such a need for the Titans, right? They got Bobby Trees. They got Robert Woods, right? They got A.J. Brown, right? Why is this such a need? And maybe a little bit of that is baking into the fact that, okay, well, maybe they don't get A.J. Brown back on contract, right? Bobby Trees is coming off an injury, right? I think when you look at this, the defense was pretty trash at times last year, but they typically year over year, they bounce back from being really bad and then really good, right? And it's just kind of like they almost find their groove, almost like Kansas City does too, right? So it's really tough to kind of analyze that. But I think at the end of the day, you look at this team, you look at what they need. The offensive position needs to be opened up a little bit. It can't be so dependent on Derrick Henry because Derrick Henry's getting older, man, and he's got so much tread on those tires. You just don't know how much more he's going to be able to give. I think Jahan Dotson is the pick if they're here. It's not really what I love to say, but I think that they'd have to go with this pick here. And I love Jahan Dotson. Man, I don't want this to be the pick because I think they do need to reinforce the defense a little bit. I mean, you look at the interior defensive line. I mean, I love Travis Jones as a non-first round pick. I think Travis Jones is going to be great for whoever gets him in the second round. Corner, not something I think they do here. Yeah, man, I'm just going to do it. I think they go Jahan Dotson here. Bucks up on the board. Definitely, this is automatic for me. I get it that maybe there's some thought that you need to go out and grab a receiver because, we're not going to have Chris Godwin there, Antonio Brown at the building. But for me, I think you got to grab an offensive lineman on the interior, and you get a guy like Zion Johnson, who is my favorite interior lineman just because he is so versatile. And I get it, Tyler Linderbaum right there, still sitting there, but he's a center, man. He's a true center. He's an amazing true center, but he's still a true center. And I think what we're going to see is that a guy who can play multiple spots is going to be valued a little bit higher. Packers up on the board, though. Up next, what they do here, a lot of options. I think Edge, Boye Mafe could be exciting for them. I think Boye Mafe is a guy that might sneak into the first round, too. Arnold Ebiketie is another guy who I think could sneak into the first round. Offensive tackle is something that they could explore. Bernard Raymond, I think, has kind of played his way out of the first round. He didn't have the best Senior Bowl performance. I've taken kind of similar dudes every time doing this draft, and I want to shake it up a little bit. I really do, but I still do feel like that interior defense line with a guy like DeMarvin Leal might be really tasty for them. Interior offensive line, too. They could get a guy like Kenyon Green who can roam around on the interior. Maybe that is what they do. They just doubled down on Aaron Rodgers and they invest on the interior offensive line, get a guy like Kenyon Green who can play all on there. Let's see here. Kansas City Chiefs up on the board. You know what they're doing with one of their picks at least, right? They're going receiver. Sky Moore, small guy, 5'9.5", but he was a killer. He was an absolute beast. I think they go Sky Moore here with their draft pick. George Pickens is staring down the barrel too. And, do they take a shot on him? Maybe. I do think he's really an exciting player. I took him in my rookie-only mock draft. But who's to say that they don't take two receivers here? They got Juju. They got MVS. They got why is this? Well, Mecole Hardman. Who else do they have right here? You guys need to remind me. I feel like they've got somebody else too that I'm just totally slipping. That's really not even that good. But damn, I'm forgetting it right now. Their receiving core sucks though. They need to do some investments. Corner is definitely still a need for them too. And so I think Kyer Elam does make a lot of sense as well. Man, let's see here. Well, let's definitely take. Man, okay, let's think about these receivers real quick before we make this pick. Where are they going to go? Let's think about the build that they got in these receivers. Juju's a big body frame. MVS is a big body frame. Mecole Hardman is a pretty big body, but also very just electric speed guy. They lost Tyreek Hill, who's an electric speed guy with good route running skills, who is small. That's why I think Sky Moore just makes so much sense here. I got to take him. Kansas City Chiefs up on the board. I think this is where they go corner or edge here. And this time doing the mock draft, I'm saying Boye Mafe is taken here, man. I think he's going to be a really good pick. Let's see here. Who is left on the board that is just too good to let go? Man, there's a lot of people here who slipped through my mock draft. Cincinnati Bengals up on the board, though. There's no way this guy falls out of the first round. Tyler Linderbaum going right there. And then to finish it off, we've got a couple of tasty assets here for the Detroit Lions. Desmond Ridder, who I've taken here with the 32nd pick before, which I think makes a lot of sense. Daxton Hill makes a lot of sense too. Out of Michigan, a guy that can kind of play all over the secondary and give them a lot of support. That one makes a ton of sense too. And then the Georgia safety, Lewis Cine, that makes a lot of sense. And then Nakobe Dean. And I don't think they invest in the receiver position. I just think that they've got a lot of assets there already. Obviously getting DJ Chark, they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, they got Josh Reynolds. They've got a lot of bodies there. And they've spent a lot of money on the offense. The offensive line is the highest paid in the league. They've got guys at the receiver spot who I think have proven a lot. They got TJ Hawkinson. The offense is kind of figured out. The defense needs some work, right? The defensive line blows, in my opinion, but they've got a couple names. Linebacking core needs a lot of support. The corners need a lot of support. secondary needs a lot of support. And that's why ultimately I think they settle on a guy like Daxton Hill, who can play both safety, but he can also come up and play corner, nickel, and can play a little outside linebacker if needed. I mean, he's a solid run tackler too. Didn't mean to click on Lewis C in there, but Daxton Hill. I really like this kid. He was one of my favorite safeties when I first started looking at this class outside of Kyle Hamilton. So if they were to snag this dude, I think he'd be a great pick. So with that said, guys, that has been the final mock draft I will do before Thursday's 2022 NFL draft. John and I are going to be grubbing hard, and we're going to be watching all of it. I think John was telling me it starts at 8. I thought it started at 7 for some reason. So let's look that up real quick. Let's just verify that real quick because I think John's actually right on that one. 2022 NFL draft Thursday in Las Vegas. That's right. That's what Kayvon Thibodeau was talking about. Yeah, he was right. He was right. 8 o'clock. Man, this can be a sick one now. Hopefully we get a little Pat McAfee shout out like he did last time. That was always fun whenever he does the Colts draft picks in the later picks. He's hilarious. But anyways, guys, it's been a blast today. I've also loved to kind of get to know more about these prospects. I know it's not necessarily football in this fantasy sense, not yet. Anyways, I mean these guys aren't. These guys are not quite yet fantasy relevant, but it's kind of cool to just get an idea for what guys are going to be on your favorite football team soon, but also are going to be making all those big plays on Red Zone and on NFL Sunday Ticket on a weekly basis. I think the biggest takeaway I've had from this analysis is just like seeing like year over year how much like we bake in that like multiple quarterbacks are going to go. No matter what, we are going to see a ton of quarterbacks go in the draft, which is like pretty ridiculous. I mean, like in this draft, we're looking at it's probably the worst since I think they said it was like 2013 or 2014, with EJ Manuel kind of being the headline guy out of Florida State, right? It's been a long time since we've had this bad of a draft class. But we've got some really good players too at the receiver spot, and we've seen receivers be productive day one very recently with guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, from a fantasy perspective too. So I think from a fantasy side of things, when you're looking at this draft and you see these guys taken, these receivers can be like guys that absolutely blow up and are top 15 type of guys day one. I would say case in point, guys like Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson make a lot of sense for that. Even though Drake London's my top guy in terms of rankings, I think those two dudes probably have a higher ceiling from a fantasy perspective. And then you get those guys that are falling to the 20 to 32 range at the receiver spot, especially this year with guys like the Packers drafting there in bulk, the Cowboys drafting there who are looking at a receiver, the Packers. I mean, like there's just so many good quarterbacks, good teams that are going receiver this year so late. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of fantasy success for whoever gets taken there. Yeah, I mean, Mayday coming in here. The quarterbacks are ew or throw uppy, yucky, ducky from my point of view. But hey, I'm a schmuck. No, Mayday, I think you're right on there. I don't think these quarterbacks are that good. I mean, I kind of shook it up in this draft a little bit that I did today and took Malik Willis as the second pick, second quarterback taken. Just because I do think that we're kind of seeing Kenny Pickett like fall out of the conversation a little bit, maybe earlier than he should, because I do think he is going to be a guy that still is taken in the first round for sure. Like sometimes you just like there's these stories that just come about with these guys that like just to knock on somebody's status that like end up just not coming to fruition. And I think that's gonna be kind of similar to the case of Kenny Pickett's hands. But hey, who knows? Mayday saying I'm not opposed to drafting Treylon. My Gallup shares will cry though. Yeah, dude, that is one thing. If you're a Cowboys fan, like me, perspective, I am not a Cowboys fan. I don't really give a shit about them, but I do love Michael Gallup, and I love from a fantasy perspective CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. And if they draft a receiver, it's just gonna hurt them. Like I don't know how to feel about a guy like CeeDee Lamb as like an absolute dominant receiver. One for fantasy, and I don't know how to feel about Michael Gallup as a guy who could be a huge, big time upside type of dude next year if they draft another receiver. So who knows? Who knows? We'll see how it goes. So I'm pumped for it, guys. Again, Thank you so much for coming out here and showing your support, guys. If you're still in the stream, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that sub button if you are not already a part of the Catch fam. And if you guys are watching this retroactively, please do show us support as well, guys. We just love to get as much content as possible out there, football related. Fantasy stuff is really starting to kick in full gear. Once the draft's done, it's going to be basically all fantasy. This college process has been fun getting to know more of these guys, but man, I'm looking forward to just kind of getting back to fantasy football in general and just kind of getting to see where these young guys are going to be placed too. But with that said, guys, it's been a blast. Remember, you saw it here first at the Catch, and looking forward to next time. I'll see you Thursday on our live special of the 2022 NFL Draft. Peace out.